What the heck is going on here? Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, a series of Pokémon games with some cool box legendaries, interesting special Pokémon, and some cool hidden legendaries never before seen. My curiosity has gotten the better of me, so let's do some investigation. Exploring the vast landscape of Paldea, you may have seen these suspicious looking stakes driven into the ground. What could they possibly be? Well, I've decided to leave them alone and move along my way through the rest of the story. I figured they had something to do with the ominous sealed gates that appear off the beaten path. And yes, these are where you would find the new legendary Pokémon. I think this was a pretty neat idea to give you a hint of them so early on in the game, but nothing was outright told to you, further building the mystery, and you could 100% just break these seals on your own time without gaining any knowledge of the Pokémon hidden inside, which reminds me a lot of some other legendary Pokémon that were sealed away. But in Scarlet and Violet, there is some lore to this that we're able to learn. By taking the history class at the Academy, we can start our journey to discovery, and what better person to be our guide than Rhyfort? Like the other teachers, you don't really get to know her unless you attend her classes and interact with her during off hours. But I do really like Rhyfort. Her design is great with a bunch of cool little Easter eggs, like her Marshadow hair clip, Articuno necklace, Tapu Koko bracelet, and the Stylin Lunala belt buckle. I think it's cool for someone interested in history to have accessories based off of legendary and mythical Pokemon that we rarely see other characters, aside from professors or villains, even acknowledge. And her clothing gives off the impression of an archaeologist working in the field. Anyway, in the first half of history class, we learn mostly about the history of Paldea as well as a great crater in the center. And after the midterm that I definitely studied for, Rhyfort decides we could use a little break and tells the class a fairy tale. To paraphrase, there was once a king who loved treasures, especially those from other countries. One day he buys 4 treasures from a merchant who came from the east. These were a vessel, a sword, a set of tablets, and a set of beads. But later that night, disaster struck and the castle was destroyed. However, just as the story is getting good, the bell rings and class is over. Later classes resume the usual curriculum, but I think this is a great way to introduce these legendary Pokemon. Of course, Rhyfort would know an old fairy tale like this, and bringing it up as a little treat for completing a midterm is exactly what teachers tend to do. But cutting things short and driving the player to explore further out of curiosity is a great way to incorporate the lore into the setting. So we can find Rhyfort in the library after class and learn what exactly happened in the story. As it turns out, the king's castle was destroyed because the 4 treasures had become Pokemon after being passed from one owner to the next, corrupted by hubris and greed. How fitting that it's a wealthy ruler who enjoyed treasures from other countries that finally broke them and caused them to awaken. Though the story ends with Pokemon wielders battling these 4 treasures and eventually sealing them away. And of course, here is where we get the information that the whole thing actually happened, and that Rhyfort looks forward to sharing more with us. After taking the history final, she gives all the details and even marks on our map the shrines where these Pokemon are sealed away. Now, the responsibility of whether or not to unleash these manifestations of evil falls on my shoulders. Well, I do like seeing cool Pokemon, and this wouldn't be the first apocalypse I've caused, so what's one more? Off we go! And so now we can head out and find 8 stakes per seal, which is easier said than done. I decided to first head to the Grass Wither Shrine, which is the closest to home. Also, by the way, all these seals on the shrines resemble a Pokeball, because they're being used to contain a Pokemon. Genius, and does some interesting things for the Pokeball lore, but I guess that's a topic for another day. Anyway, I think it took me around 15 to 20 minutes to track down all of the stakes without a guide. Don't get too excited, I only recorded the full run of the first round because it was a while. It wasn't too bad overall, but it was definitely a very involved process, more so than some other legendaries. But now I can finally break the seal and battle the big snail on campus, Wo-Chien. Oddly enough, this was a bit of a tough battle because not only is this a bulky Pokemon, but it is a grass type, meaning I couldn't just use Spore and put it to sleep. I had to use Sing, friggin' 55 accuracy Sing. And on top of that, this dude just kept using Giga Drain to restore HP, and it kept sucking my Pokemon's health. It was an absolute menace, I hate it. But after chucking Ultra Balls like there was no tomorrow, I finally caught it. After that, it was basically rinse and repeat for the other legendaries, each with their own set of stakes to discover and seals to break. To the west is the Ice Wren Shrine, and inside is the saber-toothed ferret, Chien-Pao. Thankfully, I could finally bring out Brute Bonded and start lulling it to sleep with Spore, and it didn't take nearly as long to catch because it thankfully didn't have any recovery moves. Heading north to the Ground Blight Shrine, I found the Bull Moose, Ting Lu. While being a certified big boy, I actually caught it in the first Ultra Ball I threw, so it felt a little like a reward for the insanity this run started off with. And lastly, to the east is the Fire Scourge Shrine that held Chi-Yu, though this was the one shrine that was actually well hidden, being inside a cave at the top of a waterfall with way too many Pokemon waiting inside to ambush me, including some aquatic Houndour.
What the dog doing?
I do kind of wish the other shrines were well hidden like this one, but it's fine. The battle against Chi-Yu didn't last too long because I also caught it in the first Ultra Ball. So now I've caught all of the ruinous Pokemon. I guess by wielding the power of Ultra Ball's modern technology, I'm able to single-handedly keep them at bay. In the end, I think this was a fun little quest that incorporated some hidden legendary Pokemon very well, especially in how it utilized Scarlet and Violet's open world nature to hide all the stakes. Again, the lore is there for those who decide to seek it out, but it's totally possible to just stumble upon these Pokemon on your own without being prompted to. I think the quest was able to maintain a good balance. Alright, so what exactly is going on with these Pokemon? Well, for one thing, they have some very obvious Chinese names, and I suppose that ties into how the fairy tale mentioned they originated from the East.
I thought you said West.
Very interesting because we don't often see too much Chinese influence in Pokemon, though I feel because I know very little about Chinese mythology and absolutely nothing about the language, I have no authority to decide how well these Pokemon are executed on that front, but I've seen a lot of interesting discussion on how their names are formed and how that ties into them. So if you know anything about that, please further enlighten me in the comments. But I for sure can analyze these Pokemon based off of what the game tells us and how they're represented in the world they inhabit. While these Pokemon embody different elements with their secondary typings, they do all share a primary typing of Dark. And as any Fact of the Week PokeTuber will tell you, Dark type is called Evil type in the Japanese versions of the games. But these are some of the few Pokemon that really seem to hold that as part of their core design. Wo-Chien's Pokédex entry mentions how it is the physical manifestation of a grudge held by a person punished for righting the king's evil deeds. If you remember the story, all four of them are actually born out of some kind of negative emotions. But in another Pokédex entry, Wo-Chien is mentioned to drain the life force of vegetation, instantly withering the landscapes. And the theme continues for the rest. One Pokédex entry tells us how they came to be and the other tells of their terrible disasters they bring. Chien-Pao was born of hatred and now takes joy in causing avalanches. Ting-Lu came to be out of fear and now causes massive fissures in the earth. Chi-Yu was created by envy and swims in seas of lava while melting the land. These are some of the most dangerous beings to exist in the Pokemon universe, and they're all your fault. I find it so fascinating that these Pokemon originated from human oppression, hatred, fear, and envy, but don't just simply punish those humans, instead they destroy the earth itself. Now there's a message. I feel that by owning these Pokemon, I could be putting us all in danger. Maybe I should have kept those shrines sealed. Nah, it's too late for that. I want to play with the fishy. And so those have been the Treasures of Ruin. Such a cool bunch of Pokemon, and I like the experience of obtaining them. Like I said, I think their story and adventure was very well done for them being the secondary group of legendary Pokemon not contained to the main story. It did remind me of the adventures of the Reggie Pokemon, but both are unique in their own way. Again, the way that the Treasures of Ruin were incorporated are very much connected to how Scarlet and Violet operates as a game. They worked really well being in an open world Pokemon setting. I really would like to see this kind of trend continue in future games. I love these Pokemon as a group, though my favorite has got to be Wo-Chien because it's just a big ol' snail. Also, I will never forget the pain that it put me through, and with it being composed of a bunch of tablets, it's never gonna let me forget either. Though you can let me know which one is your favorite and your thoughts on the event as a whole. For now, it seems that the world is safe from disaster. Until next time. Thank you to every channel member for your continued support, especially the great Gators. Jackson, Justin R, Cosmo Zero, Michaela, Mr. Pig Puncher, Phantom Pyro, Quago, Volity, and Pastel Blood. If you'd like to support as well, get a shout out here as well as access to emotes and comments and live streams, you can become a channel member today. You can also follow me on Twitter for more memes. Anyway, this has been GatorEX, and I'll catch you all later.
Happy Meal!
永氣牛出動啦！仲有波㗎嘛？去啦，比卡超！好厲害啊！預備，瞄準，發射！
即刻嚟麥當勞食開心樂園餐，投入比卡超動感水世界！